Tonight, is kind of a little bit not college night as normal. We like to take one week out of the year and do just kind of like a relationship Q&A. So my lovely bride, Savannah, is joining us tonight. Say hi, say something.
Hey.
Anything you want to add, or?
No, I want to get into the questions.
Man, all right, I like it. But these are questions that you guys have sent in either on social media. A lot of our college team has asked them, and it's kind of a little bit kind of off the cuff a little bit. Obviously, we've got our questions that we're going to try our best to get through as many as we can, and ones that we can't, we'll probably try and create opportunities, whether on social media or throughout the year to answer other questions. But let's just have a little fun. It's going to be a little raw, a little unfiltered tonight, and we're just going to, do our best to, just answer questions. I don't know why I'm looking at you like that. Say something else for them.
Question number 1.
There you go. All right. Question number 1. How do you establish/maintain boundaries in a God-centered relationship? I think that's good. I would even start by saying tonight, just disclaimer, we are not experts by any means of the word. We're not experts. We've been together for just under 10 years, married for just under 4, and we are figuring it out still every day. We've got amazing mentors and leaders that we look to, that we learn from. So I'll just a disclaimer, we're not experts, but in the little bit of time we've spent together and learned from other people, these are kind of some things that we've learned. How do you maintain boundaries and establish boundaries? I think, it comes down to personal decisions and disciplines. Personal decisions and disciplines. I was talking with Pastor Marcus not that long ago, and he was sharing with our staff and our interns that so much of burnout that he's seen in life that people have experienced, this could be burnout in relationships. You just feel tired, don't have any energy, apathetic in life, just in general, lack of motivation, tired, what's the point, don't really want to keep this going. Most burnout he's seen has been tied to a lack of discipline, that most people simply are lacking in some area in their life that's a discipline. So I would say that when it comes to your relationship, if you want truly to have a God-honoring relationship, you've got to set healthy boundaries. For instance, when we were dating, we did not allow ourselves to be alone by ourselves. We did not allow that to happen, because the Bible tells us no temptation has seized us except what is common to man, meaning every single person in here is susceptible to temptation. Yeah, but I love Jesus. It don't matter. She's hot and we're alone. What do you think's going to happen? Put 2 and 2 together. Y'all are smart. Y'all are college educated, some of you. And we just made the decision, we will not be alone together. We will not be alone together. We did not hang out in each other's rooms. We did not hang out in each other's rooms because maybe that's freaky and whatever, but I don't care. We always made sure if we were hanging out at her house that because she still lived at home when we started dating. I had an apartment by myself or with a roommate, and whenever we hung out at her house, we made sure that her family, her parents, her sister was there. We weren't sneaking off to a basement somewhere by ourselves. We were hanging out with them. And there was actually one time where we were in the living room. This was, can I share this?
Where you are.
No, this is funny.
Okay.
We were hanging out in the living room.
We were hanging out
in the living room. And we were making out on the couch. And her dad, Pastor Marcus, comes downstairs, and we're making out on the couch.
Stop.
And I just look up.
Don't get specific. And
he's standing there. I don't know how long he's been standing there. I verbatim, swear. Hey, Pastor. And he just goes, sup? And then walks back out, and he goes like, okay, that's it. I need to do church now. I need to get saved all over again. Anyway, but that was as far, that was as far as it ever went, because I'm like, yeah, my pastor, my boss, and my hopefully father-in-law someday is in the house, so that's accountability. Amen, somebody. But even at my apartment, I always made sure that my roommate was there because I didn't want to hang out. And there was one time where we went to my apartment and my roommate was supposed to be there. He wasn't there. And I FaceTimed her mom because I was freaking out. I was like, oh, no. So I like FaceTimed her mom, set the phone, and we just sat on the couch. And I know it might seem goofy or weird, but I know how we're set up. I know how I'm set up. And the lie is to think that you're above that or different. But you got to set boundaries. You got to set boundaries. It's not cold. You don't need a blanket. It's 80 degrees. I'm cold. No, you're not, just you got to have boundaries. You got to set these little disciplines in your relationship because I don't know how it happened. Well, I know how it happened. You were hanging out in each other's room with your laptop, cuddled up next to each other. Ain't no one else. You're in your bedroom. It's 2 a.m. We just accidentally had sex. Really? You got to set boundaries in place. And I'm not judging at all. I know we're poking, we're going to have fun, but you got to really do set boundaries. You got to keep your relationship with God first because I entered into a relationship with the Lord before I entered into a relationship with Savannah. So his relationship takes priority. There's standards, there's honor, there's purity standards that I have in that relationship with God. So I would say you don't ever try and fit God into your relationship. You need to work all your relationships around your relationship with God. And it makes it a whole lot easier to set those boundaries because you're setting boundaries not for how do I have a God-honoring relationship with this person. You say, how do I keep God at the forefront of my life? Set boundaries to protect that, and by default, your other relationships will fall in line. That's what I would say.
That's good. How did you know that your relationship was the right one? Is there such thing as the one? No such thing, in my opinion, as the one, but I do believe in better or best. And most of the time, people end up with who they are around. So it's really important, especially in this stage of your lives, to make sure that you are surrounding yourself with people who are committed to making sure that you become a good person, making sure that you're surrounding yourself with people who care about your future, they care about who you're becoming. And lots of people end up settling for less because they don't strive for God's best in the first place. They're so desperate to find the one that they end up off course. And I was actually talking with some of our interns, and I had a guy ask me, how do you pick the right girls? How do you know, what relationship is worth pursuing? And so I gave him this example, and as believers, we're called to run our race, right? Called to run your race, and you're running at a certain speed, you're attending, you're serving, you're all about the things of God, you're committed to the things of God, and you're trying to reach back and get someone to match your speed. You're either going to slow down or you're going to turn around in the process. So my advice to you is run your race, keep your speed, keep your eyes on what is ahead. And if someone comes alongside you and matches your speed, link arms with them and run your race together. But you're never going to be able to reach back and drag someone up to match your speed without slowing down in the process. Another way that I would say it is if you're an 8 and they're a 4, being with you does not make them an 8, it makes you a 6. So you're never going to be able to force someone to match your level. So with Luke, for the first time in my life, so how did I know that my relationship was the right one? With Luke, for the first time in my life, I felt like I had someone who shared my values. I felt like I had someone who honored my boundaries, who believed the best in me, who worked through conflict with me, who didn't just ghost me when things got difficult. Luke perfectly complimented me, and I really do believe that he is God's best for me because we can do more for the kingdom together than we could ever do apart. But
you're my best too. You're my best
sweet.
too.
But it all started with a decision in my
Brownie
youth
points.
to
Yes.
not settle and make sure that I was striving for God's best.
That's so good. That's so well said. I have to try and earn brownie points because we missed Valentine's Day yesterday. We were working, and I was working very late, so we're going to celebrate on Friday. So I'm being a bad husband, so I'm trying to make up good husband points.
Wow.
I got a lot to pray for me, y'all. Pray for me.
We had a conversation about it. We were like, hey, because I didn't do anything either. And I was like, hey,
But it's kind of not your job. I feel like it's like
you
I don't
say
want
Valentine's.
flowers.
Yeah, but I could do something.
That's weird. No,
Anyway,
okay.
we talked about it in the morning. I was like, hey, you're not doing anything, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, no. And I was like, okay, me either. I was like, can we just pretend that Valentine's Day is on Friday? So I'm not mad, I promise.
Yeah. Friday, Valentine's Day. Be good. And then Geo Day on Saturday. Perfect. Perfect segue. How can being sexually active with a significant other harm your marriage your future marriage, even if they're the person you end up marrying? It's a great question. Because sex is a good thing, right? We talked about this a little bit last week, that sex is something God designed. Marriage is God's design. We're designed to be raised, then to leave our parental covering, to be joined together in marriage, one man, one woman, be joined together, and then you would share in the benefits of that sacred promise, that sacred vow that you make to one another before God. And sex is one of those benefits. That's the physical benefit of sex. It's so much more than just a physical nature. It bonds you. There's a love, there's an intimacy to that, there's depth to that. But beyond that, it's doing life with that person. It's the joining of your souls together in marriage. You are now joined together. It's no longer you making decisions, what's best for you. Now it's what's best for both of you together. You're making decisions together. You're leading together. You're planning your family together. You're going at life together. You sharpen each other. You encourage each other. You build each other up. There's so much that goes with this idea of marriage. And when you take something out of order, it makes the right thing the wrong thing. The right thing done the wrong way makes it the wrong thing. It's like giving a 5-year-old a set of car keys and saying, hey, go take my car out for a spin. Well, is driving bad? No, we got here somehow tonight. But there was a certain age you had to be, 16, right? You had to go and take some tests. You had to go and show your capability of driving that motor vehicle. You had to meet up with an expert in that field for them to say, hey, you're ready to do this. And then, only then, once you've proven that you're capable and ready, then are you able to say, hey, you can drive this. You're ready to drive this vehicle. You've got your license. You're good to go. Well, marriage is the same way, and sex is the same way. It's something that we're not quite ready for before marriage. It's something out of order, and anything out of order is always going to cause pain, hurt, and confusion. Proverbs tells us, Proverbs 16:17 says, the highway of the upright is to depart from evil. He who keeps his way preserves his soul. That the way of the righteous is to depart from evil, depart from sin. Anything wrong, anything not in God's plan is sin. And if you can do that, you preserve your soul. What's your soul? How you think, how you feel, and the choices that you make. You can look at the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve. When they sinned and they disobeyed God, what happened? Their eyes were opened, and immediately they were filled with guilt and with shame. They tried to cover up their nakedness. And shame, that's from the enemy. God will convict you and say, hey, what you're doing is wrong. But the enemy will try and condemn you and saying, not what you're doing is wrong. You are wrong. You are what's wrong. So there might be guilt and shame. And when you sin, when you take something that's beautiful outside of the order that God's created it to be, the consequences of that are shame and guilt. Shame and guilt. And maybe you're here and you're like, oh, that's great. You know, I should avoid that, put up boundaries. But maybe you're here, and you talked about this a little bit earlier too. I'd love for you to speak to that too. If maybe you're dealing with that shame, you're dealing with that guilt, you got to know that that's not God's plan, and there is healing possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a couple of things. I think, number one, I think a lot of times the trap that we fall into as young people with sex in particular is you are with this person, and you're with this person for a period of time, and there comes this moment where you start craving a new level of depth or intimacy or understanding. And so the logical next step in your mind is to introduce sex into the relationship, because that is how you're going to get that new level of intimacy. That's how you're going to get that new level of depth. A lot of times we view having sex as a mark of maturity or adulthood, and I actually think that introducing sex into your relationship before it's time is actually a mark of immaturity, because you're unsure of how to achieve that depth otherwise. So how can this harm your marriage in the future? Issues that you might have otherwise talked about, or conversations that you might have otherwise had, conversations that create that intimacy, that depth, you push off to the side or ignore because sex is the answer, or sex is going to fix it. We feel distant, we don't feel connected, sex is the answer, instead of maybe looking for the root issue. So I think that sometimes sex can actually be a hindrance for intimacy and for that depth. But if you're in this room and you're like, well, we've already kind of crossed that bridge, what now? I think it's really important for you to know that the Lord loves you, the Lord is for you. You can be repentant and say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. And the best way that I've ever heard repentance put is you stop where you are and you turn in the other direction. So it is possible for you to go to your significant other and say, hey, from this point forward, we're going to honor the Lord with our relationship. These are the boundaries that we need to put in place. Or if you're single, then and you've made those decisions in the past, it's possible for you to go into a God-honoring relationship in the future and say, hey, this is where I've slipped up before. It's why Luke, it seems weird, all of his little rules, but Luke made decisions that he wasn't proud of, and so he had to be super intense on his boundaries because he knew how quickly he could fall into certain things. For me, those weren't decisions that I made, so I thought that they were really, really weird, and I felt like it was because he didn't like me. So anyway, my point is that restoration is totally possible. Healing is totally possible. God is not this person that's angry in the sky and is looking down on you for your decisions. The important thing is that you make a decision to turn around and change your actions going forward.
Very well said. And I would say the same is true with both sex and with porn, because I think I've seen porn be such a horrendous attack on love and on the idea of marriage and expectations going into relationships. Because, I was just reading a study, and I think I shared a little bit of this last week, but when you watch porn, your brain literally forms a synapse, and it bonds you to whatever your environment is in that moment, you and whatever you're looking at. So it's creating this bond between you and a two-dimensional thing that does not exist. So you're creating this expectation of something that does not exist, and there has to be repentance from that. And God will convict you and say, hey, what you're doing is wrong. So if you're feeling the shame, like I'm a horrible person, I'm the worst thing, that's from the enemy. God's not giving you a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power, love, and a sound mind. You can remind yourself, Paul says in Romans, that you're not under the law, you're under grace. God has given you, no temptation has seized you except what is common to man. And guess what? If it's common to man, God's given you the power to overcome that temptation, to break that stronghold, to break that addiction. If you've struggled with it for 5 years, this can be the year God can free you from that and break it. But it's got to be a turning point in repentance. It's got to be, I know this is wrong, I've got to leave some things behind. So you might need to delete apps on your phone. You might need to download blockers. You might need to remove yourself from situations. God, I'm never going to do it again, but tomorrow night we're going to be hanging out at 2 a.m. in our bedroom. Well, don't be doing that, It's I'm repentant. I don't know how it happened. I do. Boundaries, come on, set up some disciplines in your life. Have some people, have a group of people, a leader that you can talk to and be honest with, and they can help keep you accountable along the way. But it does come down to that personal discipline. But knowing that the creator of the universe, the Lord Almighty, he is on your side. He's fighting for you. When you can read that word, you can read those truths and remind yourself, wait, I've got the power to overcome this temptation. I do not have to live under the weight of sin. God has, the greatest lie is that sin has the final say and that the enemy is just this all-powerful being. He's not. He's already been defeated. Jesus has given you the strength to overcome. Why don't you continue? Yeah. I talk a lot. You just got to cut me off and go. Come on.
Next question. How active should I be in the process of finding a spouse? My question for you would be, who are you looking for? Don't get so wrapped in who you're going to end up with that you forget who you need to be for that person. So quit thinking about Mr. Right and start focusing on being Mrs. Right. Quality attracts quality. Stability attracts stability. People with their priorities in line attract people with their priorities in line. And I've met one too many single people who fall into one of two categories. The first category is that they talk to anything that moves and they wonder why quality people are not attracted to them.
If you feel like that's directed towards you, it is.
Or B, they don't talk to anyone and they wonder why they're unapproachable. Okay, so this is what I would say, is surround yourself with people that you enjoy. People who push you to be better, people who hold you accountable. Don't focus on finding spouse. Put that over here. Focus on finding solid people for your circle. One possibility is that you're going to end up with someone that you've known for years as a friend, and you can walk into that relationship confident that you know who they are and what they stand for. The other possibility is that the quality people that are in your circle, the solid people in your circle, are going to attract other solid people to your circle. And now you have people that you can trust to tell you what that person is all about. So that's what I would say, is focus on your circle. Quit focusing on your spouse. They'll get here. It's coming. It's going to happen. Just focus on who you're around first.
Very good. Very good. Is it okay to pursue a relationship with someone if they don't go to the same church or if they don't go to church at all? I think this is a two-part question, so let me answer probably the ending part. If they don't go to church at all, easy answer, no. But they love Jesus. Well, if they love Jesus, why do they not care about his bride? If they love Jesus, why do they not care about the hope of the world, the greatest institution on the planet? They love Jesus, but they don't really like church. Okay, well, they must really not like Jesus. Because that's like saying, I like Luke, I just really don't like his wife.
Rude.
Tell you what, you say whatever you want, but I don't like you. You don't like her, you got a problem with me. You know what I mean? That's my wife you're talking about. That's my bride. The church, in all of her imperfections, is Jesus' bride. So if somebody is not about the church, red flag. I don't know. I'm better than that. And I think the idea that you don't need church, that church can be whatever you want and wherever you want, I think is one of the greatest traps that somebody could fall into. Because the church is the hope of the world. Jesus said to Peter, upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Meaning that the church is God's plan to attack the gates of hell. Gates don't move. That means the church is on the move, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. The church is and always will be God's greatest plan to reach those that are lost, hurting, and broken. That leads into another question we'll get later. But I would say if they don't go to church at all, you can pursue friendship with them, not a relationship with them, but pursue friendship with them. I'm not saying we're not to be friends. In fact, it's the opposite. We're called to reach those that don't know Jesus and don't go to church. But you have to make sure that you're influencing them and that they are not influencing you. It's exactly what you were talking about earlier. You can't have one hand back here and expect to get anywhere in life, but you got to make sure that the people that you surround yourself with, that they love Jesus. They're about Jesus. They're about the church. They're about the things of the Lord. And they don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk as well. So, and what I would say also that if you're in relationship or wanting to pursue a relationship and they go to a different church, the purpose of dating is marriage, right? Inevitably, you're testing compatibility, but the goal throughout dating is that you would find your future spouse and that you would make that decision together, get married. So if you don't go to the same church, I think that's a big conversation you should be having now and not put that off any further. I really like this place, he really likes that place, or vice versa, whatever. You need to have those conversations to see if one of you would be willing, because God has called us to be planted in his house. So if you're getting uprooted every other week, that's not going to be that's not going to be a thriving life that's planted in God's house. So I would encourage you, if you're pursuing a relationship with somebody else that doesn't go to the same church, talk about that. Find commonality, and maybe God has called you there, or God has called them here, or wherever that may be. It's important to find common ground now. And just because you're dating doesn't mean you're committed for life. You're not committed for life. So if it doesn't work out, and you're going to talk about this later, we need to normalize relationships not working out, not making an enemy out of somebody else that doesn't work out in a relationship. Why don't you take the next one? It's a good one.
How to know if a relationship is toxic? What do you consider to be red flags? So Galatians 5 talks about the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. And the fruits of the Spirit are evidence that God is the center of your life, or in this example, the center of your relationship. And if you think about fruit, okay, go with me for a minute. Fruit can become rotten, right? So if fruit is rotten, then it would be toxic for you to consume it. So how do you know if your relationship is toxic? My question for you would be, does your relationship exhibit traits that are the opposite of the fruits of the Spirit? So is it hateful? Does it leave you sad? Does it rob you of your peace? Is there a lack of understanding? Are they mean? Do they break your trust? Do they go against boundaries in the name of love? If so, congratulations, you have a toxic or a rotten relationship. Red flags that I consider personally. This is probably going to vary from person to person, but this is just what I look for, okay? We're just going to read them.
Body odor.
What?
What? Is that not a red flag? It should be. Body odor?
Oh, yeah. Dang. Yeah, take care of yourself.
Add that to the list.
Yeah, take care of yourself. Red flags for me personally. Are they jealous of healthy relationships in your life? Do they question your commitment to the things of God? Do they lack respect for you and your boundaries? Do they not have any friends? Do they not have mentors or people guiding them in their life? Do they hold grudges or give the cold shoulder? Do they have issues with authority? Are they quick to address your faults in times of conflict? Red flags, Miss Girl, red flags, in my opinion. Do you have any?
Yeah, I would say like a big red flag is, it's been a while since I've dated. Okay, so if thank God for that, I know. I'm so glad, I'm sorry you guys are still dating. I hate it.
Sorry.
Sucks so much pressure. So what do you like to do for fun? Oh, no, really, that's so cool. How long till we can make out? I don't even. First date too soon? I don't.
What's your favorite color?
I like blue too. Wow, that's all.
Do you have a favorite flavor of ice cream?
Oh, I like Rocky Road. That's so fun.
Oh, you should go to Graders.
What's, I can't say that. I almost said something
please
bad.
Don't. Okay, move
What's
on.
your body count? I can't say, never mind. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Womp, womp.
I think a big red flag is this. It's college night, grow up. But hey, a big red flag would be if a girl doesn't have any other girlfriends.
Hey, same. Yeah.
Like, because this is what they'll say. Or if a guy doesn't have any guy friends. Like if a girl just only hangs out with guys, she's like, well, girls, they're drama. It's like, well, are you?
Yeah, my thing is like you can't even find one.
Like one friend, like red flag. Or guys, I don't know, man. I just connect with women more. I don't. So you can call it that. We called it something different in high school, but it's after hours. I'm on one. I'm sorry. I told you it's raw and unfiltered, but those are red flags because what I loved about Savannah is I got to know her through her friends. Because it's one thing when you're talking to somebody and you're on a date with somebody, they could save face and they could say all the right things, but I want to know what other people say about her. I want to know what the people closest to her say about her. And you know what? They all echoed everything that I saw. They echoed that she's a good friend, that she was the person that they could call when they were going through hard times, and that she was always encouraging them and always pointing them back to church. And I not only saw her love Jesus and serve people and love people, I saw it through her friendships. I saw it through the way she led students. I saw it. And I got to see that through our friendships long before we ever entered into a relationship, so that when I finally asked her out and we went on a date, I had a very good understanding of who I was getting involved with. And I went into that relationship already knowing a little bit about who she was. And obviously I made the right choice because, my God, look at you. But, I would say, yeah, that would be a, don't look at her, stop. And
Next question.
Next question. I'm just going to say something weird.
Yeah, too late.
How do you handle conflict and disagreements when they come up? Jesus tells us, I love it that I don't have to guess how to do that. Matthew 18:15 tells us exactly how to handle conflicts and disagreements. Matthew 18:15 through 18. If somebody sins against you, go to them. I love it. It's simple. If somebody sins against you, go to them, because we don't like to do that at all. If somebody sins against us, what do we love to do? Go and rally everybody else to our side. Can you believe he said? Can you believe she? Well, I thought they'd never. Well, I just can't believe that they. Already, I can tell you that's unbiblical. When you're carrying offense and hurt and you're trying to rally people that are not a part of the problem to try and somehow be a part of the solution. You can never be a part of the solution if you are not the one affected by that. So I can tell you you're handling conflict the wrong way, or people are handling conflict the wrong way if they're trying to rile you up over what they said. Can you believe that they did this? And I'll be honest, I've been guilty. I've been guilty of this, where I've gotten frustrated and I've vented and I've handled conflict wrong. And I've had to go to people and people close to me and say, hey, you know what, I handled that wrong. I was wrong. I was wrong to say that, and I was upset, and I apologize. I was wrong. And maybe, you might look back at some conflict and some disagreements, and maybe there's some people you need to apologize to. I think that's a great sign of maturity. I've never looked down on somebody ever once for them saying, I'm sorry. And I think it's actually a great sign of leadership and maturity when you can own your mistakes and say, hey, I handled that incorrectly. But the right way to handle conflict is to go to that person directly. Matthew 18 tells us that. Go to that person directly. And if you cannot find conflict resolution there, then you're to bring in a third party, a leader, not a friend, not somebody who's just going to rally to your side, but a leader that can help speak into the situation. And if you can't find resolution there, then the Bible says you're to bring in the church leadership. And then if you still can't find resolution there, you wipe your hands of it and say, hey, look, I've done everything that I know how to do. God bless you. God keep you. I want conflict resolution. Clearly you don't. It's out of my hands at this point. But you do everything that you can to find conflict resolution. In a relationship, you have to be willing to just talk to the person. I'm pretty blunt, so I've had to learn soft eyes, soft voice, because I just, when a problem arises, I'm like, okay, let's just talk about it now. Let's just do it. She's like, oh my God, why are you yelling? I'm like, I'm not mad at you. Let's figure it out. Let's solve the problem. And it's like, okay, well, no, I've had to learn to just, hold on, just calm down, soft eyes, soft voice. And I love one of the things we say all the time. One of these statements, you share it because you did such a great job. Yeah. We remind each other of these two statements, and whenever we're trying to find resolution, this is key.
We're a team. We do things together. I'm not your enemy. Those are two, if he is really intense about something or if I'm being really intense about something, it's kind of like our signal to one another, hey, slow your roll. Yep. I think a really important part of conflict resolution as a couple is realizing that your person's not the problem. There is just simply a problem that you have to attack together. And so I think as soon as you can remove the emotion from it and just slow your roll and confront that issue together and know that, hey, we're supposed to do this as a team, I think that you're going to get answers a lot faster and you're going to save yourself a lot of heartache because you're not throwing personal jabs and you're not making it personal when it's really not personal.
Yeah, and sometimes you might need just some time. If a problem arises, you might have been taught, we've got to solve it right now. It's like, well, hold on. It might do you good to just have a breather for a moment. Savannah does this wonderful, lovely, beautiful thing where I'll be just about to fall asleep, and then that's when she'll want to fight. And I'll be lying, just about to doze off. Would you love me if I was an HDMI cable? Would you love? And I'm there was one night, I'm not proud of this, but there was one night and I was literally about to fall asleep and she's like, can we just talk? I was like, I had just worked a 14-hour day. I was like, baby, I love you. I'm going to bed. We'll talk in the morning. And then I put my pillow down and I just hear.
He let me cry myself to sleep.
I said I was not proud of it. But I woke up the next morning and I cooked her breakfast and I cleaned the house because that's what we do. We own it when we're wrong, and you just own it and you say, I messed up, I was stupid, I just needed sleep, I'm sorry. I'm cranky.
You were ignoring my cues all day.
Yeah, and that's another thing right there.
Gotta be direct.
Don't do cues, man. Just say when something's wrong.
I've gotten better.
You have.
Yeah.
You have. Thank you.
Okay, next up.
Why don't you?
How do you know if you should repair a relationship, or how do you end a relationship and honor the other person through it? So what I'm about to talk about does not include the 3 A's, which is abuse, addiction, or affairs. So those 3 things, they are not under what I'm talking about. For me, those are deal breakers. Those are not something that you should be dealing with in this stage of life. You've not taken a vow, so stop acting like it. If you're dealing with grown issues as a young person, it's not going to get better when you get married, okay? So just go ahead, put that over here. But I do think that there are times when conflict arises in your relationship and you're forced to ask yourself, what do I do from here? And only you know what your tolerance level is, and that's going to vary from person to person. And like Luke and I said, I think open, honest, humble communication is a big part of it. Owning when something is off, owning when something's wrong, being willing to say sorry, not just willing, but quick to say sorry. Showing active change. I actually learned this recently, that if you address something with someone and they promise to change and they show change for a short period of time, then they revert back to their old cycles, it's actually considered a form of abuse. So it's important to show active change and being okay with confronting the issue as needed. So if you get into this issue with your person and you say, okay, I can forgive you, I'm letting this go, but you can't move on past it and you just find yourself constantly reeling constantly overthinking it, you can't really move on, then that's a sign to move on from them. It's not fair to hold that issue over their head. It's a sign that your tolerance level has been reached, so just go ahead and move on from it. If it's an offense to get over, then like Luke said, sometimes it's wise to bring in a third party. So for us, we have a married couple. I think they've been married for almost 15 years. They have 3 kids. And when we can't see eye to eye on something, we're going to go to someone who is more experienced than us in this area and who can hold us accountable. So you can invite a third party to help you guys work through that. However, sometimes there are incidents that occur that you just can't get over, and that is okay. You can forgive and set a healthy boundary. 2 things can be true at the same time. I think a lot of times we get forgiveness really twisted because we think that we should just forgive, and forget. But then you end up as a doormat and people just walk all over you. So you can forgive and you can set a healthy boundary at the same time. Proverbs 22 says that the prudent see danger and they take refuge. So there are going to be moments where you have to remove yourself from a situation, and that's okay. People can be incompatible. So let's say that you decide to not repair it. Honoring the other person looks like leaving what happened between the 2 of you. Not saying that you don't process with a friend or a leader, but again, if you're processing with more than 1 to 2 people, that's when it's considered gossip. 10 people cannot be part of the solution. It's just, if you're just going from person to person to person, you're just bleeding all over people. And that's not fair to them, and it's not fair to the friends that you're processing with. It's not fair to you. So I would just say 1 to 2 people. Have you ever looked on Instagram and that couple that you have been following suddenly deletes all their pictures and you're like, what happened? My God.
She'll talk about this. She'll be like, Luke, did you see this? And then we'll debrief together.
I'm like, what's going on? But then I actually love when I never find out what happened, because then my perception of either person doesn't change. I just get to love them for who they are and for how I know them, and things can just stay at that. So honoring the other person just looks like leaving it on the floor. Just, this is over here. It's not part of whatever. We're both works in progress, and God has something or someone better for us. Maturity is saying, it didn't work out, but that doesn't make them evil. And a lot of times I think what happens is we need someone to blame. We need someone to be the villain in the story, because that just makes more sense when things end. But I think that instead of making them the villain, I think maturity looks like saying, you know what, didn't work out. That really sucks. But God has something better for me, and I'm going to focus on being the right person for that future person instead.
So well said. Lastly, I think this is a perfect question to end with. How to be friends with people who don't have a relationship with God. The idea that we're not supposed to be friends with or reach people that don't have a relationship with God is crazy to me in the church, because that's Jesus' last commandment to us. Go and make disciples of all nations, right? That's what he told us right before he ascended up to heaven. In order to make a disciple, you've got to find somebody who currently isn't a disciple, somebody who doesn't know Jesus, and help turn them into somebody who follows Jesus actively. Well, how do we do that? Jesus lived the model on how we're to do it. He went out and he broke bread, he ate, he had meals, he did life with people who did not know Jesus, with tax collectors, with prostitutes, with the people that everybody in society would look down on and be like, yeah, these people are lost, they're crazy. Well, Jesus was able to go into these situations and influence these people, but not allow his lifestyle or his standards to be compromised. And I think that's the problem, is a lot of times we'll put ourselves in situations, and instead of influencing, we allow ourselves to be influenced. Well, Jesus was able to withstand temptation because he was sure of who he was. His walk with God was not faulty by any means. He spent time with Jesus. He had a place to pray, a time to pray. He went out early in the morning to seek God. He knew the scriptures. He was in the word. He walked with his disciples. He had his inner circle. So isn't it funny that the people closest to him, his close friends, they all knew his Father. So the people closest to you, your inner circle, that has to be people that are believers, that are Jesus followers, disciples of the Lord. But at the same time, you and the people around you should have an active desire to go out. What does Jesus say? Let your light so shine before others so that they might see your good works and glorify our Father in heaven. People need to see you. You're the only Bible someone's going to read. you are the only Jesus somebody's going to experience. So we've got to make sure we're using the influence that God's given us in our classrooms, at our workplace, on our teams, on our social media platforms. What an opportunity. Social media is limitless. It's exponential influence because you can use it as much or as little as you want. You're leading people in your life somewhere. They're either closer to Jesus or further away from him. So I think, how can we be friends with people? Man, create environments where you can influence them where they're not influencing you. Instead of going to the party to hang out with them, man, have them over your house. Have them over your place. Bring them to church with you.